We're very excited to have you all here today. My name is Noam Soker. I am the graduate intern with the University of Washington's Combined Find Drive, and we are so excited to have our second seminar in practicing social advocacy in our social advocacy program. I'd like to just give a special thanks to our program sponsor, AT&T. Great, just checking that all the tech is working. And now we'd like to actually start with our land acknowledgement. The University of Washington acknowledges the Coast Salish people of this land, the land that touches the shared waters of all tribes and bands within the Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. So today we are thrilled to bring to you all a panel of incredible UW staff. Leilani, Maggie, and Virginia will share a bit about themselves, their advocacy journey, and the staff perspective on the overlap between work and social activism, and what you all can do to continue practicing social advocacy. After each presentation, we will send you all to breakout groups to discuss the questions the panelists pose. We will wrap up our time together with Q&A. You'll be able to use the chat feature for that. Now it is my honor to welcome our panelists. Leilani Lewis is the Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion with UW Advancement. Maggie Fonseca is the Director of the UW Kelly Ethnic Cultural Center and Undocumented Student Specialist. Regina Frausto is the UW HR Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Specialist. As they to remind you all to please mute yourselves so we can have we can hear our presenters clearly. And again, we'll give you a couple more instructions for the breakout rooms as they happen. The first, our first guest who's going to share is Maggie Fonseca. So I'll turn it over to her.
Thanks, Noam, and thank you everybody for having me here today. So I will take you through my own personal social advocacy and activism journey. When I was thinking about what I wanted to say, I was really reflecting a lot of pieces in my personal life to got me to where I'm at. And so before I go into my story, I did want to talk a little bit about a question that was posed to me a few years ago from a colleague here at the University of Washington. We happened to just be chit-chatting, having lunch, talking about our life and different things. And then she posed this question to me, and that was, when did you become socially aware? And I thought about that, and up until that point, I hadn't really, to be honest with you, thought about it. I just kind of have always felt like I do what comes naturally in the things that I really believe in. So I did start to reflect upon that question, and I started to really recall the different parts of my life experiences that has made me who I am today. And to start off with that, I want to give you a little bit of background. I know there are several people on this Zoom program today that know me or know of me, but some of you may not know a lot of my personal history. And so to give you a little bit of background on how my journey began, it really starts off with my father making the decision to bring his family to the United States from Mexico. So I immigrated to the US when I was 6 years old. And for the first 10 years of my life and my family's life in the US, we were undocumented. We spent a lot of that time growing up here in Washington State in a small farming community called Othello. And Othello, for those of you that don't know, has a lot of migrant workers. So I have this Washington migrant background. And what that really means is that my family, my father being a farm worker, and my family assisted to bring in additional monies through us working in the fields. And that was everything from, you name it, picking apples to picking asparagus and working in the fields in a variety of different areas. Early in the morning, getting up at 4:30 in the morning, to after school, if the work didn't get done, hurry back, change, and go back to the field to finish out our work. And so that really was a big part of who I am today. So let's go ahead and go into the next slide. And when I really think about why I'm so civically engaged or have become an activist in my own way, I think about a couple of different things. So prejudice was a catalyst to becoming socially aware, if I was to answer that question now to my friend. And it really was prejudice. Again, I have 8 brothers and sisters and my mom and dad, and we came into this country from Mexico, not really having a lot of social capital and a lot of friends or family, no family at all. Friends really kind of came from a place of attending church. And 2 very pivotal experiences happened in my life that changed what I do today. The one was my 5th grade teacher changed my name. I remember having a conversation, and I will always remember his name. His name was Mr. Ritchie. Mr. Ritchie said to me one day, I can't pronounce your full name, Magdalena, so I'm going to start to call you Maggie. And you're speaking to a 5th grade child who knows they're undocumented, who knows that we fear immigration, who is coming from a different country, doesn't really fully understand the US institutions, if you will. So when your teacher says, I'm going to change your name to Maggie, you don't really say anything about that. But what I did do is I went home and told my mom that this had happened. And because my parents were really mostly concerned about making sure that we were going to be stay safe, she said, okay, well, don't say anything, don't do anything, just kind of go with it, right? And I remember thinking that didn't feel good, because that is a big part of my identity, right? Our names are a big part of our identities. The second thing that happened in my life that I put in here was the slap heard around the world. So again, I'm coming from a place where we don't look like a lot of the people that do in Othello. It is a predominantly white small town. And I remember being on the school bus one day. I was in 7th grade and my sister was in 9th grade. And mind you, we had been getting bused in to go to school every single day since we started going to school in the US. And I remember some of the children that would make fun of us because we looked different. We didn't really fully speak the language correctly. A lot of the kids knew on the bus that we picked asparagus and that we worked in the fields. And that was something that I guess was not socially acceptable. It made us, of course, seem like we're poor and we didn't have resources. So it was fodder for students to make fun of us. And I remember, again, talking to my parents, and they were just kind of like, well, you just kind of have to deal with it, because again, we don't want to draw attention to ourselves because we are undocumented, and it could mean that we get they called the immigration on us and then we'll get sent back to Mexico and get deported. But I remember one specific day when my sister decided enough was enough, and this younger male student or kid on the bus was being really mean to my family, or I think to one of my younger siblings. And my sister had it, and she just decided that she wasn't going to take it anymore, and she slapped him. She slapped him across the face, which again, I don't condone violence, but I have to think about what was going through her mind, that she had just had it and she wasn't going to take it anymore. And I tell this story because it made me understand that, at some point, enough is enough. And the most poignant thing about this is that the bus driver saw it. They told her about it, but she didn't do anything to get my sister in trouble. If anything, she kind of supported us. And after several years of riding that bus and her being our bus driver, she really kind of took care of us as a family. And so a couple of things that I wanted to point out in here as far as lessons learned at such a young age was that it's okay to stand up for yourself. There are going to be things that happen in your life that at some point you're just like, I have to do something about it. This can't go on any longer. The second is that it's absolutely acceptable to lean on your allies, to go to those folks that will have your back and will provide support to you in whatever ways that you need it. But it's also great for you to be an ally to those that might be in need. Next slide, please. So because of my undocumented experience, and it was very isolating, it was very, very difficult. I didn't want, growing up, it was tough. And so, fast forward, we did become documented. I got accepted to the University of Washington, and I ended up getting my degree. I then, went away, was invited to come back and work for the Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity, and then eventually landed working at the Samuel E. Kelly Ethnic Cultural Center, which I have been doing for the last 21 years. And one of the things that I was able to do within the Ethnic Cultural Center is it's a very student-centered work environment. And so let me share a little bit about the Ethnic Cultural Center. So about over 50 years ago, students of color quickly realized that many of them may not be represented in their classrooms with the faculty and the campus community. In solidarity, some of those students came together with a shared common goal. They were looking for a place to call home, where they could be accepted and celebrated for who they were. Because of their activism, the Ethnic Cultural Center opened its doors in 1971. And one of the things that we do at the Ethnic Cultural Center is we take that to heart. We pay, every time people come through and we give tours, we always pay homage to the history of the Ethnic Cultural Center and how we came to be. A lot of cultural centers in higher education, as a matter of fact, were born out of student activism. And that is exactly what we try to do through our work at the Ethnic Cultural Center. And so some of what I've been able to do through my own personal experiences in being able to incorporate social activism within my work is, I was introduced to a student in 2001 for the first time that was undocumented. And at that point, I didn't know that undocumented students could go to college. Maybe like many of you as well, didn't know that undocumented students could come to college. And to be honest with you, that first time that I started to talk to that student and she shared her own journey, her struggles, something about that story opened up a sense of passion and commitment. And most importantly, I wanted to protect her because everything that she had shared with me, I could relate, and I felt all the things that I felt again when I was in high school. So what I started to do within my job was, this was not part of my position, right? What I ended up doing was I said to my boss, hey, if I have time, if I do all of my work, would you be okay and would you support me in me assisting students on the side that are undocumented and helping them out as best as I can? And my supervisor at that time was very supportive, and he said, yes, absolutely. So what I ended up doing through a lot of work is I ended up working with undocumented students to make sure that they were getting resources and services. And the key to that, though, was making sure that I had worked with partners across campus. We started to facilitate undocu-ally trainings. I wanted to make sure that this was a much broader topic. So working outside within Washington-wide initiatives, we co-founded the Leadership Without Borders, worked with other entities like the College Success Foundation to bring in additional funding. At one point, we also secured funding for a program. And then one of the things that we've been doing in the last several years is doing consultation and then launching our Train the Trainer program. So that is one way that I have been able to take my own personal experience and then bring it to my work area and to continue the work, and then also make sure that the students are getting the services and resources that they need. So this brings me to the question that I have for all of you to ponder in your small group chats. So next slide. So my question for you is that question that was posed to me years ago, and that's, when did you become socially aware? And how did this lead you to your personal social activism? I would love to hear what you all have to share about your own personal journey.
Thank you so much, Maggie. We really appreciate you sharing your story. We will now send you all into breakout rooms. You'll have 3 to 5 minutes with a 30-second warning. Please make sure everyone shares what they feel comfortable sharing in response to this question. It may be helpful to designate a person to facilitate to make sure each person has an opportunity. Quick reminder, as a quick reminder, we ask that you all mute yourself while we have our presentations going. I know that was quick, but we're really excited to keep our conversation going and hear from our next speaker, Virginia. So Virginia, the floor is yours.
Okay. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, Noam. You want me to share my screen, or are you gonna go on to the next slide?
Yeah, my colleague will move on. Ooh. So everyone, please be patient with us and our various technology. But yeah, we will have the slide shared.
No worries. Alrighty, so yeah, hi everyone. My name is Virginia Frausto. I am the UWHR Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Specialist, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about my journey with social activism and how that's also shaped my personal life and how that's also manifested in my professional world now. You can. So a little bit of background, and you can click through the whole thing if it's easier. A little bit of background about myself. Just like Maggie, I'm from the east side of the mountains, central Washington to be specific. So I was born and raised in a little town called Sunnyside. I am a daughter of migrant parents, our immigrant parents, who migrated to the United States in the 80s, and they've settled here for ever since. So my parents became migrant farm workers, very similar to Maggie's story. And I'm one of 6 children, and so we all worked alongside them. You know, picking cherries during the excruciating heat of the summers, to pruning trees during the frostbite and cold winters, and sometimes even during the summers we would actually move over to the Skagit Valley, and we would pick all the berries that you can think of: strawberries, raspberries, cucumbers, over in the Sakuma farms, if y'all are familiar with them. So my parents really instilled a significant work ethic in my siblings and I, and you know, they, even though you know, they endured poverty, you know, language barriers, they always advocated for my siblings and I to pursue an education. And so I attended high school here in Sunnyside, a small town, but we had a pretty big class of like 200 plus students with a very, very low graduation rate of like 30%, I believe it was. It was significantly low. And you know, Maggie talked about this pivotal moment in her life and where she kind of became aware. And a quick story that really influenced and really shaped me was one time when I was in class in high school, where there wasn't very much representation with our staff and our teachers. They were predominantly white, and serving students who were predominantly Latinx or students of color. Well, I was a bit of a chit chatter, always been very outgoing. And so one day I get in trouble and I get called out, and my teacher is scolding me right in front of the class and telling me to knock it off. And then he ends with, "But it's okay. You're just gonna drop out and get pregnant anyways." Oh my gosh. And so that, even though like now I'm in my in my 20s, years later, still affects me, and I still get a little worked up when I share the story. But but by him saying that, basically was saying, you're going to become another statistic. You're going to drop out, and you're probably going to become pregnant, and you're not going to do anything with your life. And really just put me down in front of everyone. And so I really took that. I remember I was really, really impacted by that. And I had one counselor that I would always go to, Mr. Rodriguez. And and I remember I talked to him about the situation, and he was somebody that I could confide in, and really I turned that anger and really that resentment towards this one teacher who still works around here, by the way. And I really turned it into a passion, right? And I was a first generation student, so my parents advocating for me to pursue a post in education. I kind of ever since then I really wanted to show him, and it really turned into wanting to prove something to myself and really wanting to better myself and and grow. And so as a first generation student, I was navigating FAFSA and applying for college and submitting applications, and that one counselor, Mr. Rodriguez, really helped me through the process. Luckily, I applied to both the University of Washington, and I luckily got accepted. And then I came into this new space, really, really happy, very ecstatic about the opportunity. And then I found myself just navigating this new space, and it was really difficult to navigate this new space where it was predominantly white and predominantly privileged. I remember sitting in my political science classes sometimes, and I would have classmates saying, well, my dad's a lawyer, or my mom's a doctor, and here I am, a daughter of immigrants and farm working parents, and so I didn't really fit in with that narrative. And so what really helped me, and shout out to the Ethnic Cultural Center, Maggie, was the Samuel Kelly Ethnic Cultural Center. And that's where I really found a sense of community. And I became a part of BIPOC student organizations that they did a lot of work around activism and trying to create resources for BIPOC students on campus, and really creating a sense of community, and really trying to leave the space better for new generations to come, and make it a little bit easier for other BIPOC students to navigate, and easier to navigate the space. And that's really where my passion for activism began. Kind of went through high school, and then it manifested itself in undergrad. And you can go to the next slide. And then, I graduated, and I know that this passion for activism and wanting to do and instill resources to just kind of leave a space better than what it was, led me to wanting to pursue a career or another job or a role where I could really where my passion, where my drive and my passion could be welcomed. And I decided to work for a nonprofit organization called the Centro de la Raza, where I felt right at home. I don't know if y'all are familiar with the Centro, but it is one of the biggest Latinx nonprofit organizations in King County that was founded in the 70s, and that serves various social services programs, anything from housing to food banks to multicultural, bilingual pre-K education. And I really flourished in that space. And, along the way, I knew that I wanted to switch gears a little bit. So I applied to the public sector, and I actually landed a role over at the University of Washington, which I was really ecstatic about too. And then again, flashback a little bit about navigating a new space. I was here at the University of Washington where, my colleagues, my superiors, were once again, it was predominantly a white space. It was very different. So here I am trying to navigate this new space, and really also still carrying that passion for activism work, right? And equity work. And so you can go on to the next slide. and really trying to find that intersection with my social activism, my passion for social activism, and my current role. For the past 2 years, I was working at the Department of Labor Relations, and I was trying to figure out how I can, my passion for activism can manifest, and how I can carry my DEI lens and my equity lens over to the work that I was doing within this department. So fortunately, I was invited to participate in the diversity committee. There was a diversity committee, an existing one, and so I was invited to sit in one day, and then I became a member, and we've done significant work in the diversity committee, and I was really grateful for the opportunity, because then I found a space where my social activism can keep it on. And I mean, we did work with UWHR. We compiled our first ever pulse survey, where we were trying to capture the employee experience within the department, and making sure that we are cultivating an inclusive and respectful culture for all people of all backgrounds. I was able to help coordinate workshops around implicit bias and microaggressions, which was great opportunity for staff development. In 2019, we hosted our first ever diversity day event, where everybody was just welcome to come in and celebrate everyone's everyone's background, everybody's experience, and different identities. And unfortunately, in 2020, things went a little crazy, so we didn't get to do it in person. Fortunately, all of those experiences led for the next opportunity in my career as a DEI specialist. And as a DEI specialist, now my work is fully kind of grounded in DEI, not kind of, but it really is. And it has become the center of the work that I do. So everything from creating substantive tools and strategies. We created our first required training. It's the implicit bias training that UW hiring managers are going to have to take every 2 years, and that stems from the state DEI directive. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that. Jaisley's been doing great work. Just in November, we launched our first ever data baseline report. That was about 1.5 years in the making. And right now we're really working on a tool that we're going to pilot within our department. It's the DEI rubric, and that's going to help for, and hopefully help, and then hopefully across the tri-campus, but really help institutionalize DEI within your own work. And that's by reviewing and assessing your own practices, making sure that the work that we're doing is leading to equitable and inclusive practices. And then you can go on to the next one. So it really is about like finding your passion. I found mine a while ago, and I wanted to keep, social activism, diversity, equity, and inclusion work, making sure that whatever I do or whatever I'm engaging in is going to be for the better of others, and really, and for creating better practices for other employees to come, and you know what, and so now, it's just about finding what is yours, what are your values, what are your passions, what are your goals, and find that intersection of social activism and your own work life or your personal life. Keep using a DEI lens with your work. You can join or start your own diversity committee if there isn't one existing within your own department. Research, I can't stress this enough, research and proposing ideas, even with our own, developing our own DEI data baseline report. I mean, we referenced other institutions across the country that have already been doing the work, and so many people have been doing substantive DEI work that we can definitely reference and really UWify, if you will. So research, propose ideas, rely on resources that UW already offers, like pod courses, for example. We have amazing consultants internally and externally providing DEI courses. Our UWHR DEI website, go to it. We we have uploaded a multitude of resources around implicit bias, data. The data report is on there, and lectures. The UW Alumni Association is hosting a series of workshops that highlight and I think it was like highlighting. I wrote it down. Highlighting and empowered BIPOC alumni. So and just the other day I was sitting in on a lecture by Ta-Nehisi Coates. If y'all are familiar with that, a Black journalist, he's a renowned journalist and author. So my question to you, my time is up. I'm getting the notice, but my question to you is, what is your passion, and how does that lie within social activism?
Thank you so much, Virginia. This is a big question, right? You will be going to new breakout rooms to make sure that we have enough time to hear from our final speaker and give you all some time for Q&A. We will make this a little bit shorter. It'll be 3 minutes, and I do have my eye on the time. So please make sure all the folks who are in your group can share. We try to keep it to 3 to 4 people so that each one of you has anywhere between 45 seconds to a minute to share. So I'm going to open those up. Please join if you will.
Can you see me?
I was the only person in my breakout room. Is that an accident?
So we do have some folks who are still in here, so it could be that the individual who was in the breakout room with you decided not to, which is, we can't force anyone.
Right.
I will send you to, if you'd like to participate in a breakout room, I'm happy to send you to one.
I'll sit this one out and wait, I guess, in the main room. So
you are also welcome to share with us what are some of your values. I mean,
well, this feels like a very big audience with like 10 people in here. So
sure.
Or maybe Kimberly and I can go to the same room. I don't know what she's saying. I can just see she's talking.
Susan, I was multitasking. I'm happy to go into a room with you.
Yeah, let's go do that. Perfect.
Sorry,
are we in the same one room?
Let me get the right
okay.
The right Kimberly into the right room.
Perfect.
Sorry.
Thank you, Noam.
You know what? We actually only have about 45 seconds left.
All right. Never mind.
But I can try to coordinate that for the next one.
Oh, well, I mean, I just want to be in a room with people and not myself.
Yeah, I understand. I'll do my best for that.
Yeah, I'm good with random, but
Susan developed a complex from attending whole U events.
We're like, what's going on?
We are very excited to have more people than we had originally expected, and with that, there are a couple of little hiccups sometimes, and so we just keep going.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Gotta be flexible.
Get in and what I can do. That's too short.
Yeah, too short.
I know these are short. We're trying to accommodate as much as we can for you all, and we're very excited that you are engaging and that you are participating and you want to keep these conversations going. So yeah, welcome back, folks. We are so excited that you're having great engaging conversations, and we do encourage you to keep thinking about them. Keep having conversations with your colleagues, with your families, with your friends about these topics. It's not a one-time deal. And with that, I'm also very excited to welcome our final speaker, Leilani Lewis, to share about her journey.
Hi, everyone. First, I want to acknowledge Virginia and Magdalena for their wonderful presentations. Really appreciate your time and focus and your content. So to wrap up and close out this journey, I'll be your next flight attendant here and bring it home for us. We might not have.
Just got muted.
Yeah, she just muted.
Have I been muted this whole time?
Sorry, no,
No.
that was a quick mute. Apologies for that. Please,
Okay, well,
please continue.
That's fine. So title of my talk is Values to Action. I work here. I'm the director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for UW Advancement. It's a brand new position. I started in September. So I am still getting my sea legs, still finding my feet, and still figuring out ways to embed this work within the advancement organization. But it started in my baby career, my early career. So I have a degree, the first generation in my family to get a college degree. I'm also the first to have a master's degree. So I have and for a lot of firsts since then. So I came to my education. I had a passion for art, clearly, and not money, because I got a degree in art history. So I ended up working and supporting the Northwest African American Museum, which was just a project or a concept or an idea in my early career. Working for a small, this is a 12-person max staff organization, small nonprofit organization that came up in 2008. It was opened in March 2008. So at the crash of 2008, if all of you were around or in the US or understand or know that, it was a very devastating time for our country. It was a very devastating time for Black people. And it was a devastating time for all of us here in Seattle. So that's when the Northwest African American Museum opened. And I started out as a development sort of officer or assistant of sorts, but we wore many hats. I did a lot of things, volunteer managed, did some marketing, did a lot of things for NAM because I did that sort of work just because I was happy to have a job. I cared about the art, and I was really excited just to be working and learning. It's very, very green when I first started, as we all are when we first start out. And I got my sort of chops in that community, in that museum at that time, with some really amazing leaders, Black leaders at the helm, and staff and people who are leading the way for me to build my career there. So I was there for several years. Actually, it was probably like 3 or 4 years before I started. I started, I loved, again, I'm still art history. I'm trying to think if I want to get my graduate degree, which I eventually did. But the reason I went on to more education, the reason when my career really started to, when I really started to think about who I wanted to be, I wanted a career. I didn't really think about, cultivate the idea of who I wanted to be in the spaces that I work and who I show up as in the spaces that I contribute my time. We spend so much time at work. We give of ourselves at work. And what I got to do, what I ended up doing, and you'd think, that you come in, you've already figured that out, you come to work for a place. Well, it happened opposite for me. I didn't come in with all of the values and social justice principles and care that I had a surface foundation, but it hadn't internalized it yet. But what I understood was that my position and my role in this museum, and I wore many hats. I ended up developing their marketing communications. This is in, thinking 2008 to 2015. So around 2010, 2011, building their marketing communications, doing some programming, and really started to think about what the museum and what this space can do for the community, and how can we meet the community's need? What are the ways that I, as a human being who is a first generation college student, African American woman, and somebody who cares about African American art history and culture, how are we meeting the needs of the community? So the exhibits, I started to speak up and use my voice in understanding how our exhibits could be more of a reflection of some of the younger culture in our community. How we can address when things are Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin was killed. How do we show up in programming? Before we were, we just had we had book talks and we had some other types of programming, but we hadn't sort of partnered in a way that brought a rapid response to the tragedies of our community and the healing that needed to happen. And how can the museum become that space? And that was a lot of the work that I did in collaboration with others, only after I sort of found or pushed myself to think way beyond me growing my career and more about how I use the spaces that I'm in to meet the needs of the communities I care about. So in order to do that, we had to make sure that the museum, you can flip slide, became a place not just for exhibits, not just for passive flow. The museum became a place for the people who felt a sense of belonging, and all people could feel a sense of belonging. And what did I do to make sure that I can contribute to ensuring people, if nowhere else in the world, if I can influence that work anywhere else, I can, but I work here, I'm in this space, in my sphere of influence, and what can I do to make sure that we're creating a space where all people feel they belong? And that means that we had to partner, not just make a space for exhibits for people to passively receive and enjoy information, but an exchange of energy. We partnered with beauty salons when we had an Afros exhibit. We partnered with, Swedish when we had a healthcare, and invited people in. We invited people in for celebrations of joy, Black joy. We invited people in to hear dynamic speakers to talk about the work they're doing. Yes, but we also brought in local folks to share their work, invited a lot of community engagement, a lot of people to come into our space to create that sense of belonging. And it was a time when the museum flourished most. So these are the questions I asked myself. And I want to say, I didn't do it alone. This is a community of people, but it was only after I found my voice and decided how I wanted to show up and serve my community that is what I was able to do. Now I left the museum in 2015 and pursued my growth in communications for the Race and Equity Initiative, which was brand new at the time. This was at the height of the BLM BLM activities and action and activism on campus. It was a very exciting time and hot time on campus. So I was really excited to engage and be part of this Race and Equity Initiative, which was going to look at how to serve the community in a more effective and broader way, or accelerate or support some of the work that the Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity was doing. So very excited to be a part of that. And then in that work, again, I'm just sort of trying to spread and see like where else is the need. I ended up starting the committee, an equity inclusion committee within University Marketing and Communications, where people can sort of sift through how we look at images, how we portray people, how we use language, all of that. And they created some amazing tools over the last several years from that committee and from that work. And now I'm sort of scaling that up within university advancement. And that's just because of my drive. And I ask myself, what can I do in my grounding in social justice, anti-racist practice, to make sure that people, wherever I am, they feel they belong. They feel like they can be a part of something if they are of a marginalized community or group that has been historically excluded for many years. This is I can have an influence on that. So my question is, when you go out into the world, what do you experience, and how do you experience belonging? What are the conditions for any of us to feel like we belong? They're no different. Some of us, not terribly different. They're not going to be terribly diverse. They're going to be a lot of the same answers, but I think people need special or other conditions. No, we all feel belonging when we have some basic things. So find out what those are, maybe talk about that. And it says, how does it feel to belong? It says, how does it to belong? You guys need to catch me on these typos. How does it feel to belong? What are the feelings that come up? How do you know? How do you know you belong somewhere? And what can you, if you don't already, support or create those conditions in your everyday life? How do you make sure when people can feel that they belong around you? Do you create spaces for them? Do you have a sphere of influence to make sure that everybody is treated and gets the sense of that they belong? Maybe it's more, and that's the root of my work, is making sure that I bring to bear a systemic lens anti-racism, anti-racist practice that is active, diversity, equity, inclusion as a pathway toward anti-racist practice, in order to make sure that wherever there are people, that they have the same opportunity regardless of their race, gender identity, sexuality, and that there are equitable outcomes wherever I am, because that's what makes people feel like they belong somewhere, and that's lets people know that they're valued. So that is my question to you. Please discuss.
Thank you so much, Leilani. And I couldn't think of a better question for us to have our final breakout room in. I have a timer set to make sure that you all have about 3 minutes, and then we'll come back for hopefully a question or two and some wrap up.
The time. Okay. Oh.
Yeah.
Welcome back, everyone. Timing. I have a mentor who said if we could figure out timing, we would have world peace. Whether that's scheduling or getting through a presentation or a program with the right amount of timing, it's never easy. And I really appreciate everyone's patience and grace in navigating this. So we've got a minute to go. I'm really excited to have you all here, to have you all having insightful and engaging conversations with each other. Please feel free to contact the folks who you spoke to. We all are at UW. It'd be great to help facilitate those connections. So as we come back, if there is I'm going to pass it over to Jolyn, who will facilitate the question and answer portion. I believe she had one quick question, but if you have questions right now, please use the chat feature to submit them, and then we will try to be as respectful of your time as possible and do a quick wrap up.
So we had a question from Rhonda Rutherford asking if the DEI rubric will be available across campus.
Yeah, I believe Virginia answered that in the chat, but she can go ahead and keep answering.
Okay. Let's see, shout out for art history majors. Shout out for all non-traditional degree majors. I think there are a lot of you here. And you all wanted more time to talk, which I think we all did. And I think I got all, did I miss a question? No, I think I got everyone. Yep, I think that's it. I think we're good on questions. I would talk forever to tell you how awesome this is. Thank you, Virginia, for letting us know that we'll share the DEI rubric, but I'm really excited to turn this back over to Noam and let her wrap it up.
Great. Thank you all so much for being here and participating. Thank you to our incredible panelists for sharing their stories and inspiring us with a variety of ways to take action. In the coming weeks, we will be sharing more resources. By we, I mean my incredible and inspiring colleagues, Jolyn and Nicole at the Combined Fund Drive. We will be sharing more conversations, more resources, our mini series, all of that will be available on in our Practicing Social Advocacy program and on our website. For those in the program, we will be meeting on March 1st for a check-in. More details will come later. We'll have a guest speaker. It'll be fantastic. Later in March, we will have our last seminar with Dr. Crystal Hall of the Evans School for Public Policy and Governance. I'm super biased. I was a student of hers. She's incredible. I highly encourage everyone who's been here to go check that out. More information is on our website, which is handily on your screen, hr.uw.edu/CFD. Our last announcement, which is kind of random and really fun, is that there's a great tribute to Audre Lorde on Google today. So we encourage you to check that out. If you have feedback or would like to know more information, feel free to contact us. Our information is on the website. And thank you again for being here. Thank you, Maggie, Virginia, and Leilani. You have added so much value into this week and so many weeks of working with you all for me and for my team. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. And everyone have a great rest of your day.
Thanks so much, guys. That was amazing.
Thanks for coming, Lauren. And thank you, speakers. You did an amazing, amazing job.
Oh, good. Noam, you did such a great job too. So glad
Yes.
you're part of this group.
I love that this is part of my job. Like
we can tell. We can tell.